Hey, you guys, I'm Venus Monique from the hit crime drama Vindication, and you guys should definitely make sure you're catching the Maurice Brown Show on Roku TV.
Yeah! What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Show. We have a very special guest on the show today, all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, a clean comedian who loves to make the entire family laugh. And she's on our show today, and she actually spent 3 years as the master teacher and curriculum writer for Fellowship Bible Church Children's Ministry in Brentwood, Tennessee. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, please welcome comedian Christy Conder. What's up, Christy? How are ya?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day.
It is great to have you on the show. I'll tell you, how are things going in the stand-up comedy world as we begin to slowly but surely depart from this pandemic?
It's slow but sure. It's like coming out of a cocoon. You come out going, oh, look at the world. There are people that exist more than just this portion of them. They have whole bodies, and you can like talk to them and say something to them and have a response and get a response back without the delay, So
there you go. We had a chance just before we came on to talk a little bit about doing stand-up and what it's like coming back after such a long break and everything. What was it like for you? And before we even get into that, have you done Zoom stuff, any stand-up on Zoom?
I've done things with other comics, which really helps. Because comics know how to help each other. I've done a few things, but not a whole lot. It's such a weird medium to try to get a response, and then you're watching people and they're watching other people, and it was just odd. But you got to try something, and I think you made a great comment. This platform's not going anywhere, and so we kind of have to adapt to that. Going, we can still work this. It's just an added thing. Let's not take it away necessarily, but let's just add it to our whole repertoire of what we can do on stage, which is cool.
Absolutely. And the benefits of this platform, like, I'm an actor as well as a comedian, I audition for commercials and films and things of that nature. Okay, now the advantage is I can audition for a film in California as I'm based out of D.C.
100%.
For that matter, I can, audition for a film anywhere around the world. I've met comics from around the world that I never would have known before, like they're in Italy and the Middle East. There are comics in the Middle East, believe it or not, Christy, which I found quite interesting. But I've got comedy friends from all over the world now, so that is the benefit. But when you're doing stand-up, one of the things that's frustrating is you tell the joke, and now you have to wait about 3 seconds for the laughter to come back at you.
Right.
And so then you have to learn how to get into that rhythm, and then you have the other aspect, which is a negative, and Bone Hampton can speak to this. You're doing stand-up for about 1,500 people. Can't see anybody.
Correct.
You don't know if you're killing or you're bombing. You don't know.
Hello, anyone there? Or, on the Zoom one where they have everybody muted. And so you see people going, but you can't hear a thing. So it's
no, you can't hear anything.
You can't hear a thing. So you're like, it's like doing a bunch of miming comedy. It's just odd.
Well, what it's doing, Christy, is it's working a new muscle. Like, okay,
Correct.
This is frustrating. Matter of fact, this is insane. However, all right, because I've found by talking with other comedians like Felicia Frazier or Bone or Thor Ramsey and some of these people, they're like, I find out later that I killed. Yeah, So it's like, okay, so I'm doing really well, and so I guess I'll keep doing it the way I've been doing it. But obviously, you have to get comfortable in that zone,
right?
Which only enhances your now. So when you went back out, Christy, what were the crowds like? Because I was talking to Carrie Pomerali earlier, and she said people were just so ready to get out of the house. They were just ready to laugh.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I mean, it was I did with Bone. I think we had 15 people, in this huge open space, socially distanced space. And it felt like, I was shouting to an empty room, and then but you heard people laughing. It just sounded like they were far, far away, but you were like, everybody just wanted to just be there and laugh and, say something. So, there's Bone.
There's Bone. There he is.
That's my bud.
Now you were on Mike Huckabee this past weekend. Is that correct?
I was the warm-up.
You were the warm-up. Okay. I love that show. And it looks like a great environment to do stand-up. Like, Mike's a good guy, and the crowds there really good. I had Mark Christopher Lawrence on a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about his experience on Huckabee's show. So, Christy, now I'm looking for you, Christy, to be one of the comics on the show.
Me too.
When's that coming?
Me too, Maurice. Maurice, I'm sorry. I'd love to be on there too. Yeah, so I'm working it. I'm doing my time. I'm doing my little side thing, but getting to know everybody, and then hopefully.
Oh yeah. I got to ask you this, Christy. It must be kind of tough because being the warm-up comic, I don't know if you are familiar with Cornbread Robinson or not.
Oh yeah, love Cornbread.
So Cornbread, and you were part of my Bible study comedy show that I do. And so Cornbread was on there, and he was telling me, I think he's supposed to actually be on the show coming up here pretty soon, because he was a warm-up as well. I don't know if they use multiple warm-up comics. I don't know how they do that. But
They do.
Okay. So I'm going, man, if you get to that level, it seems like it should be a no-brainer that, you will eventually be on Mike's show. What does it take to be, one of the comedians that are actually on the show?
That I'm not really sure. We could ask Bone. Bone's done it all. Jeff Allen's done it. Rick Roberts has done it. They've done it all. I think being consistent, that they can consistently count on you to bring laughter. For the warm-up, though, you're doing 7 minutes. For actually being on the show, you're only doing like 3 to 4. So you've got to have that 3 to 4 down really pat, and also it has to be guaranteed laughs. Oh, look at it.
Well, I believe that, Bone. And the thing is, because I would love to be on Mike's show. And I'm listening to the great reports about you up there, and I'm like, man, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's like, oh man, I better keep practicing. Because it's like, oh my gosh. But I think you're going to be up there soon too. I've heard nothing but great things about your comedy. So I think Bone is correct. I'm in total agreement with him. Let me ask, I asked you about Zoom. What about outside? Have you done any outdoor shows?
I was trying to remember. It's all kind of running together, before, after, whatever. I don't think I did, because I try to even stay away from those. Because it's just
I'm with you on
hard.
That. Yeah.
So hard as to be outside. It's a hearing thing, a volume thing, an amp thing. It's just all sorts of things like that just will work against you. But I can't all that I have, other than my backyard with my kids going, hey, nobody else is here. You talk to me. See if I'm funny.
Yes. Well, your kids are your worst critics. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They will let you have it. But, but I think that outdoor shows, and we as comics, we know when you're outside, and you're relegated to this because of the current pandemic situation as we slowly climb out of it, that, okay, you're relegated to Zoom and you're relegated to doing outdoor shows. And outdoor shows, the sound goes straight up into the air, and the laughs are not contained. So you're going uphill. Right. Being outside doing comedy. So I didn't know if you had tried, and I try to stay away from it too. In D.C., they're starting to do a lot of outside shows.
Oh, good.
Let me ask you this. What makes you, I love asking this question. What in the world, Christy, as a comic, makes you get on that dadgum stage in front of a room of people that you've never seen before, a lot of times in your entire life, probably wouldn't have a conversation with, half of which in front of a Walmart, and make them your best buddies for 45 minutes. Why would you do that, Christy?
It's I've learned that your story is cool, and when you can make kind of fun of yourself and kind of make people help you identify you to other people and just get out there and work, kind of working together in a way. It's like, I'm going to bring you a little bit of me and, make you laugh at me. And, and that's kind of good for all of us. There's something about that is humbling and yet putting yourself vulnerable. It's so vulnerable. And the first time I did that, your knees are shaking and you're just like, I've done theater too. It's much easier to say what somebody else wrote for me. I have no problem with that. I have no problem getting up on stage, but doing something, being myself upstage and something on stage that I wrote, that's terrifying. And you're like, I think I'm funny. I don't know if anybody else thinks I'm funny, but let's try it. And so there's a vulnerability to that I actually enjoy.
Well, see, that's an interesting point you bring up, because we're kind of nutty as comics. It's
ridiculous.
No one can understand why we enjoy that kind of scary adrenaline, but we love it. I love it. I don't know why, but for some reason it is just awesome. That feeling of going out there into the unknown. I always tell my wife, well, it's like, Evel Knievel before I go on stage that's about to jump over 20 cars.
Right. Or I do it jumping off a diving board. I used to love that high dive as a kid. Now, walking up there and walking out on the high dive, you're just like, what am I doing up here? And then you let go and it's, oh man, it's awesome. It's a free fall and it feels great. So to me, that's kind of being up on stage as well. Like I was one time going up with Rhonda Corey and I looked at Rhonda and I go, I think I'm going to throw up. And she goes, what? I'm not going to throw up. And I just was like, this is the way we handle it. Once I got up there, totally fine. But we came at it in different ways. I get real butterflies and, want to throw up. And she's like, she's pumping. So it's fascinating how we all are different. But the more you do it, the better the easier it gets.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I remember the first time I had ever done it. Now, I'm 57, but the first time I ever did stand-up was in 1993 in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was a radio broadcaster, and my operations manager was like, hey, Maurice, you're pretty funny. I think you need to try stand-up. And I'm like, okay. See, here's the deal. There's a big difference between being funny in the break room at a dinner party or hanging out with your buddies.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah, that's a whole different deal. Being on stage is a skill.
Yeah.
That's a craft. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh yeah, man, what the heck? Sure, it'll be great. I'm thinking, this is gonna be awesome. So I had to audition against 20 other comics. They only picked 4, and I was one of the 4. But
oh wow,
it's still the show hasn't started yet, right? I got picked, and let me tell you something. I'm at North Carolina State University in front of a bunch of party animal students. And the stage was like in the middle of all the kids. Yeah. I mean, the place was just packed. And it's actually one of the top comedy clubs on the East Coast, Charlie Goodnight's.
Oh, okay.
So I get up there and I to be honest, I was so scared, I don't even think I remember it.
How long was it?
Oh my gosh, it's just like 5 minutes, something really short. But I was so nervous. I couldn't even believe I was standing there. So, but over time, the more you do it, you start to really get the hang of it, and it is like riding a bicycle once you learn how to do it. But it is a craft, Christy. It is a 100%. Skill.
100%.
Without question, it's a skill. I'd love to ask you about your teenagers, and the and the reason I want to what is it about teenage drivers, Christy?
I've taught 3 kids now how to drive. Well,
okay.
I was in the car when they learned how to drive.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing that always bugged me was the fact that now they think they know it all. And so they want to tell you how to drive. Like, I've been doing this 50 something years. I know what I'm doing, but now all of a sudden they're the expert, and they want to go, Mom, you're not coming to a complete stop, or, Mom, you didn't signal to turn there. And Mom, you should be using your hands and not your knees, but whatever. You can just sit there, kid.
Yes. Well, I tell my kids all the time. I have 3 kids. They're all big now, like 24, 22, and 19. I told them when they were growing up, I said, listen, you're not thugs, okay? You're not thugs. Just understand that. You have a dad who's a black man that talks like Tom Hanks. Not going to happen. But no, they think they know everything. That's the society in 2021, Christy, that we live in. So I saw you do that set. I thought it was hilarious.
Same thing. I did the same thing to my mom and dad. It was kind of like, I know what I'm doing now. I can drive that Ford Torino. So.
Well, do you know what? I love that what you just said, because my mom, she, as I'm raising my kids, my mom pulled me. She said, "Come here."
That's always dangerous when she's, "Come here."
Oh yeah, that's always. Now you're getting ready to she's getting ready to drop a serious dime on you, right? So she goes, "Come here." She says, "Do you remember when you were in high school?"
And you say, "Yeah."
I got it, Ma. And that one. That one comment changed my whole perspective. In raising my kids.
Okay, I have to tell you what Mike Huckabee said to me after I came backstage, and he was talking to me about how he was going to go take care of his grandkids this weekend. Yeah. And I said, what do you love about being a grandfather? And he said, well, I've learned that, I don't know if he referenced somebody else, but he goes, the reason grandchildren and grandparents are so close is because they have a common enemy.
I like that. That's interesting.
I was like, wow, that's funny. That was really funny. So he's really
that actually explains a lot, Christy.
Doesn't it?
That explains a lot right there. So, Christy, how does your faith, and you are clearly a woman of God. There's no question about that. And I saw you on Coffee Chat with Marlo Ponos Rutz. Mm-hmm. Great comic she is. And I got a chance to really see, your faith. You really are a woman of God. How do you implement your faith as a comedian on stage?
That's a great question. I think the way God has dealt with me, that and how he and I communicate, that he has to have a sense of humor because he has to use people like me. So I kind of translate that back to God, because there's so many things in the Bible that are funny that people just overlook. Yes, and I'm like, sense of humor has to come. If we're made in the image of God, it has to come from God too. I mean,
yes, because
he has to do so much with so little, which is what a comic does, right?
That's true.
Faith, if in good observation, you can use all of it, in your comedy. So for me, it's just being observant and listening, and all that ties faith and comedy and having a sense of humor about this, fancy bus stop that we basically get to live in for a little while before we go to eternity. So.
Well, I think we have one of the most important jobs in Christendom as comedians, because I think churches are still, even though it has improved tremendously, and the quality of comedy from the church has improved tremendously. Right. It's still coming around. There's still a lot of churches out there that are not so sure we should be laughing at comedy, which I don't know if they read Proverbs or not. But anyway, let me just say this. It's like I talked to a comedian that's in the secular world, because I'll do a secular club as well as church. Mm-hmm. Just got to remain true to who you are, you know what I mean? And you can do comedy anywhere. But he looked at me during an interview I had with him, and he was like, Maurice, how are you dealing with this? He was in such a dark place. Mm-hmm. Christy, it kind of threw me off. But when you don't know Christ, when you don't know who your Father is, things like a pandemic can put you in great distress.
Yes.
But if people know who you are,
right,
and they know that you are connected in their mind to some kind of light, they want perspective and they want help.
Sure.
And it caught me off guard because, he really was stuck in a dark place, and I had a chance to minister to him. And that's part of why we do what we do, as Christian comics. People need to be able to laugh and get a ton of the stress off.
100%.
And if you can do that without going to, the gutter, people appreciate that a heck of a lot more.
Right.
It's so easy to go with these shock words, and look, I don't want to attack secular comics because there are a lot of great ones out there, but the shock words, they impede your ability to write well because you just got a cheap laugh.
Right.
Oh, you just got another cheap laugh.
Right.
And so you have to write well. I had Mark. I don't know if you've ever met Mark Christopher Lawrence.
I have, and I have a great story about driving Mark Christopher Lawrence.
Well, let me say this real quick, and then I want to hear your story about Mark. Because Mark told me he was at a show, and he does secular rooms as well. And he said, Maurice, there's a guy that went up before me, and he dropped the F-bomb 40 times. I know because I counted them.
Wow.
It was that bad, right? It was that bad.
Right.
And so Mark, what he did was when he got up there, he started singing, which was a part of his routine. At some point of his routine, he was going to do that anyway. But he started with that to get the spirit of the room back, which I thought was absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
Him understanding the spiritual warfare in that room.
Yep.
And so there's so many benefits to serving Christ, doing what we do. For example, it's amazing. But your story about Mark, I'd love to hear it.
No, we were at an event with a bunch of comedians, and it was late. Let's say that it was really late, and three gentlemen needed a ride, and they were going to call three comedians. And Mark Christopher Lawrence was one of them.
Yeah.
And Jason Earls and Mike Goodwin, and they wanted they were going to ride back, and they were going to call an Uber. It was I kid you not, it was like 1 a.m. in the morning, and I was like, dudes, I can drive you back to your hotel. I have my mom van. I will have no problem driving you guys back to the hotel. And they were like, are you sure? And I was like, yes. But we're in the back roads of somewhere, Tennessee. And we were laughing so hard because it was me driving these three brothers. I was laughing so hard because they were basically going to leave me behind if we got pulled over. That's what they said. And I was like, you're going to leave me out here? And they were like, yeah, we're leaving you.
That's funny. That's funny. There's an episode on that's funny. That and with those guys involved, that could be nothing but hilarious.
And I said to Mark, Mark Christopher, I could tell immediately. I said, Mark, have you ever done Shakespeare? And he breaks into this soliloquy, and I just went, of course you have. You can tell just by the way his voice and everything about him. I was like, you've done Shakespeare. And so that was another moment. I was like, wow, that was totally cool to listen to him do that.
Mark Christopher Lawrence is a mind-blowing entertainer. He's amazing. He's absolute. And in fact, as funny as he is as a comic, he's actually even more prolific as a dramatic actor. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my gosh, this dude's unreal.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's that good.
The whole package.
What's that?
He's the whole package.
He's the whole package. That's funny. That scene right there reminds me that you described of a scene from the TV show Blackish when they all got. I think the next door neighbor had too much to drink, and she was in a car with the. Good gosh, I can't even think of the Anthony. Oh my gosh, I can't. What's the guy's name? The lead actor on Blackish.
Oh yeah,
Anthony Anderson. Anthony Anderson. Anthony Anderson's character, his son, and I think a black coworker, they were in the car with her. They got stopped by the cops, and she's babbling on and babbling about whatever in the front seat with them, and they were trying to figure out how they were going to, solve this. And he decided, run! They all got out of the car and left her. Which is funny stuff. I could that right there, that scene. I can only imagine how funny that
exactly
was with those guys.
Or then Mike Goodwin and I were laughing because it was kind of reverse driving Miss Daisy is what it was. So we were
No. Listen, Christy, I got to ask you this question because it invariably happens to every comic. You can't avoid it. On down this road that we travel and traverse, it's just part of the game. What is your worst bombing experience on stage?
I for a long time I didn't have a worst experience, and so I was like, you start to get this kind of like, I haven't had a horrible bombing experience. And I tell you though, it was a double header kind of. I had a gig Friday night, which was probably one of the best paid nights I had ever had, and I was flying high.
Yeah.
The next night went to it was at a church. That was at a church. The next night was at a restaurant in somewhere in the middle of Tennessee.
Okay.
I was opening for a fellow comic that had been with me the night before.
Okay.
And so I was opening up for him. It was in a restaurant where they were serving at the time, which
not good.
No. And they also told me, your lights in the corner. Well, it was a single bulb, kind of shining on me. The mic kept going in and out.
Oh no. Oh.
I mean, and the jokes that had hit the night before fell completely flat. Flat, like no response. Crickets.
Yeah. Wow.
And I got about halfway through, panicked, and said, good night.
Which is probably a good move, Christy.
And I was like, how do you have one night that is so good? And then the next night is the worst. It was the worst bombing experience of my life. Now, what's hilarious to me is I had to suck it up and go and meet everybody afterwards. And they were like, you were so funny. I'm like, could you have shown me that during the show? That would have been great. I would have really appreciated that. So on the way home, I'm like almost in tears. And of course I call Bone and I go, Bone, it was terrible. I'm crying on the phone. All he's doing is laughing at me going, bah!
Well,
I was like, but it was terrible. But as Bone being the great comedian that he is and the great friend was like, what'd you learn? What are you going to take away from that?
Yeah.
All that sort of thing. Everybody has to have this. You've got this, are you funny? The pep talk from him. And I was like, yes, but it was terrible. It's like the little 2-year-old, he didn't laugh at my jokes, type of thing. So yeah, that was the worst. But how many times have we quit comedy? How many times every comedian is like, okay, I'm done. I can't do it. And then you get the next booking and you go, okay, I can go on from here. So yeah, that was my worst story, but you make it through it and you keep going.
Yes. And those kind of things, Christy, have to happen to keep you humble
100%.
Because you can get on a roll and think that you're always going to kill and you're always going to do well, and then that happens out of nowhere, and the element of bombing never fades. Like
nope.
it literally could happen anytime.
Yeah.
So it makes you it makes you humble enough to make sure that, hey, let me dig in and give it my A+ effort, because there's no guarantee I'm getting laughs here.
But you're right. There's another muscle that you have to use because. Oh, there you go. You see, what's he saying? Yeah, Lord.
It's only funny if you're funny. Otherwise, I say maybe the Lord is trying to tell you something.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that, there was another night where it wasn't my worst bomb, but it wasn't consistent. So same venue.
Okay.
First night and then second night, comedy club, secular comedy club. First night killed. Second night, different crowd. Saturday night. I've learned all the, timing, venues, all those kinds of things. And then I learned that the same jokes weren't hitting. And so, like talking with Bone, talking with Rick Roberts, Bone is so good at jump starting an audience, like trying to find what this audience, what they're, what this group is about. So like Rick was saying, you got to try out the home joke, the working joke, and I was like, I don't have that many jokes, but he was just saying he tries to jump start and seeing what's going to connect.
Yeah.
But then Bone is so good at audience work where he can jump start an audience. And those are those muscles that I'm trying to learn. And you can't do that unless you go through those things. You can't do that and see that and then talk to, like what Carrie had said, you got to talk to some veteran comedians and go, hey, what'd you do here? What do you think? What should I have done? Same with hecklers, same with all that thing. How do you shut that down? How do you change it? Yeah. How do you jumpstart? I loved Bone's word. You got to jumpstart something. Connection. Something got disconnected. You got to find the connection again.
You've got to rally. You just got to rally. You have to figure it out. I'm going to tell a story that I told Bone about a comedian named Brad Stein. I don't know if you've ever met Brad or not. Brad Stein and I did a show together about 8 years ago. I invited him to headline at a show I produced. He didn't know I was a black guy, so he gets off the plane and he goes, "You're black, my God." Well, yes, Brad, I'm black. But anyway, so we get to the venue, wall-to-wall black people, never black people in there, and he didn't expect that. So he did the set that he had prepared, and he was bombing right off the rip, right?
Yeah.
You know what he did? He pivoted and proceeded to kill for the next 45 minutes.
Wow.
I'd never seen anything like that. I was like, he killed. Oh, he tore the room up. But I was glad he was able to figure it out. But after the show, I said, Brad, how did you do that? And he said, Maurice, and this 8 years ago, so at the time he was in 17 years, he said, Maurice, I've seen everything. I've been doing this for 17 years. I've seen everything. So which means he suffered enough to figure out how to get out of difficult spots.
Right.
Because you're not guaranteed to do well. You can have a nice set that does well most of the time and cruise on along, and there's going to be that crowd that one night that ain't feeling you.
Right.
And, and I'll throw this out as well, just to piggyback on what Bone said a moment ago about just you, the individual. Like, never blame the crowd that you're doing bad.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, yo, I'm messing up, and I better figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and it's hard. It's hard. I mean, you really have to have a thick skin, because what happens, Christy, you get out there, and Michelle says Brad can swallow swords too. I know, Michelle, amazing. But look, you get out there, Christy, and it can blow your mind. Like, wait a minute, this has worked for the last 5 weeks,
right?
And I'm getting nothing. It'll blow your mind. Like, okay, and you start thinking you're a bad comic,
right?
You start getting all these negative thoughts,
right?
And it's really not the case. It's just you got to figure out how to get out of bad spots, and you have to suffer in order to do that. Let me ask you this: how about hecklers? How do you deal with hecklers?
Luckily, I'm in children's ministry, so
okay.
I get hecklers a lot in kids ministry. Kids want to here in the middle, and I go, my turn, my turn.
Yeah.
So, luckily I haven't dealt with too many hecklers. It's kind of like they see a woman up there and they don't want to say anything a lot of times. So I haven't had really anything terrible. Nothing I can remember other than going, saying, hey, my turn, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it can happen. Those are weird moments. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, and Bone, if you're still watching, please correct me if I'm wrong. But my take on hecklers is that if you're a clean comic in a secular room, you're probably not going to get one because you're not offending anybody, and you're not one of these prideful guys. We're just regular people, but it can happen on the off chance because of the drinking. Right. And I had one guy, because it's not happened to me very often. But it happened. This one dude got really angry, and he was muttering about something, couldn't understand him, and he charged the stage and stopped, and everyone kind of was like, oh, man. And I said, listen, everybody, it's okay. He's excited. I told him after the show, we're going to go chase Pokemon. He's excited. And everybody laughed, and he was embarrassed and wouldn't sit down.
Yeah.
But the thing I take away from that is I just thank God that I was not mean. I didn't go to the place he was in.
Right.
Because that's when it can really flip against you. It's like, all right, we're Christian. Everybody knows you're a clean guy. I mean, we've been listening to your set for a little. Okay, he's a nice guy. So you gotta protect your reputation, because there are comics out there that will lambaste a heckler.
Or they'll give you a chance, and then as soon as you don't back off, then they're coming after you. I mean, that's that unwritten rule that, I'll give you one time to quiet down, but if you come at me again, you're done.
And you know what, Christy? I'm going to be honest with you. I got to be honest. I love it when they just lambaste the heckler. Like, dude, you really asked for this.
Right.
I can't condone what's happening to you right now, but you asked for it.
Yep.
So it is what it is. Bone says, I got heckled in Katie Williams' rooms and almost cussed him out. They were taking bets in the back that this is the night that Bone cusses.
On stage. On the stage. Uh-oh. Here it comes.
That's funny. I love it.
Diffusing. He's so good at diffusing the room. I mean,
yeah.
But like Bill Cosby, I think used to just to talk to them because you want attention, right? That's
what they want. Yeah.
They want attention. So you're like, you give them the attention and you go, hey, can I go ahead and keep going here? I'm going to keep doing that.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's all it is. They're one of those people I mentioned earlier when I was talking about being funny in the break room or at a dinner party. Those are the people that probably are, but they don't. Here's the problem here. In this case, they don't have the guts to get up there.
Right.
Like they don't. So they want to show everybody in their little party, that they're pretty smart.
Well,
or
they're
whatever.
feeding off the party, right? They're feeding off the party. They're feeding off the other people in the room. So they're giving them the cue of where their next funny thing is going to be, right? So
that's what they're doing.
Standing up on the stage by yourself, you're not supposed to be feeding off of anything else. So now you're just feeding yourself. I mean, you're supposed to come up with it. So that's the part that you find out what you're really funny at. I mean, that's the difference. So
that's the difference, and it's thank God you haven't experienced too much of it. And again, I haven't really either. There've been one
I've
or two.
watched enough though.
No, I believe you me. I have witnessed comedians that are prolific at deconstructing a heckler.
Oh,
I mean, it's like, oh my gosh. I don't even think I can watch anymore. I don't think it's so
like
bad.
You're like, I don't want to look. Okay, but I'm going to watch. Oh, no.
So there's a bit of poetic justice when that happens. Like I said, I would never do that to anybody. I do everything by my faith in Christ to never do that and go there. But at the end of the day, these guys that do get it, hey, dude, you walked right into that. You met your match tonight. You didn't think it was going to happen, but tonight, I don't think you'll ever do this again after this one. So,
but you won't remember it anyway. So whatever.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Christy. You've been doing comedy a while. You've got a great reputation in comedy. After all of the experiences that you've had and the years that you have put into this craft, what is the biggest thing that you have learned about stand-up comedy that has made you a better comedian?
Ooh. Was that on my sheet? I was supposed to...
I think it's up there somewhere, Christy.
I didn't study for the test. I think one of the greatest compliments that I get a lot of times in comedy, I was playing this one little room, and I was trying out some new jokes. It was right before the pandemic. And I was leaving or, going back out to the lobby, and this woman chased me down.
Okay.
She goes, I have to tell you this story, and it was relating back to something that, I had made comments about and kind of laughed about. But the fact that they can relate in some way is what is good for me. And going, if I can do something that is very relatable and something that they can laugh and they talk about later, or they were like, oh my gosh, I have a story about that or something. To me, that's relating with people, kind of going back to the faith part of it.
Yeah.
And, everybody's got the vulnerability, and I'm up there being vulnerable. And then when someone wants to come share with me, they're being vulnerable with me, which I've learned to trust, which now we're at a whole different level, of they want to tell me something that happened to them without us even knowing each other. So we've gotten to the point of being able to connect. Okay. And that's even in faith. You got to find a place to connect with people if you want to share your faith. I mean, so you've got to find the common, the root, the nerve, the whatever to connect on that level. And that's where the comedy kind of overlaps with being human. And I honestly, going backstage a lot of times with other comics, it's kind of being there and listening to them even too, because sometimes they want to be vulnerable with other comedians without really being vulnerable. It's kind of a weird dynamic, but yet being in that crowd of people, that those are your family kind of people. Comedians are very tight knit. They can be, or, they can be cutthroat either way. Yeah. But being someone to just be in that world is just a privilege for me.
I got to tell you, I totally, I love that story, because I have a similar experience of getting gratification as a comic that's a man of faith, a comic that's clean in a secular environment. Mm-hmm. And speaking of hecklers, I was doing a show on one night, and there was this girl, this female, and when you girls, and of course you would never do this, Christy, but let me just say this: when you girls get to that point when you're going to do it, oh my gosh, it's on another level. Like, oh my gosh, that's tougher than tough. So it was one of those nights, and so I get up there, and I'm going, oh gosh, I hope she doesn't bother me. And I'm going through my set, and you know what? She didn't say anything. In fact, she walked up to the front and sat down. And I'm going, oh my gosh, what's she going to do? I'm trying to do my set, and I'm thinking about this person. Right? And get through the set. It's over. I did what? She never said a word, right? I'm going, whoa. I just didn't get it. So later she said, I really appreciate your set. I was talking about family. I was talking about how you should always marry smarter. And I'd always tell my kids, marry smarter. My son's like, I know that. You do it everything. Whatever mom says, you do it. I get it. You don't have to tell me. But I was talking about that kind of stuff in my set. And she said, I really appreciate that, because I'm in a dysfunctional relationship, and I'm being abused. I'm in a situation of domestic violence,
Oh, snap.
And she said, your set affected me and made me think about the choices that I make in my life. And I thought that was absolutely amazing.
That's crazy.
You're up there, and of course, Christy, we hope that we're making a difference in somebody's life, even though we're just trying to have a good time. Right. And do it in a respectful manner. We're hoping that it would affect someone. But you never know how it will affect someone, like to the extent and depth that it can affect someone.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it was just amazing. And I'm telling you,
whole other level. Yeah.
It's a whole other level. Listen, Christy, this woman, she was possessed. She was literally possessed and stopped dead center. And then, so we just have to thank God for what we do. We just have to keep doing what we're doing, because we don't know how God's going to use us. Mm-hmm. We have no idea how he's going to use us, but he's going to use us. He continues to use us. And I do believe that comedy the kind of comedy that you and I do, and Bone Hampton and Jason Earls and, Mike Goodwin, and on I can go on, Leland Klassen, and I mean so many great, Jeff Allen, so many great, Rhonda Corey, so many great clean comedians, and there's a ton. Yeah. There's a ton of them. Jason Earls always brings up the question, why aren't, and I'd love for you to try to tackle it if you don't mind. I didn't write that one on my sheet either, Christy. But Jason Earls wonders, why aren't more Christian comics A-listers? What do you think of that?
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Jason Earls is so smart.
He is.
I'll tell a Jason Earls story real quick. The first time I went to the Christian Comedy Association, I had never been I was writing, but I wasn't performing yet. Okay. And I thought, I'm going to do my first 3-minute set, and he recorded it for me.
Okay.
And it was so sweet because he came up to me, he goes, "You're going to want to remember this." And so
wow. Nice.
And I was like, "You recorded it?" And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, so, it's that big brother in comedy that you just go,
yes.
More A-listers. That's a great question. I have theories. I have, it's so interesting that there's some that don't want to go into the secular world. There's some that only want to stay in the Christian world. And how do you define an A-lister? How do you define that? I mean, is it by size? Is it by what you're paid? Is it by, the draw?
Right.
What you're willing to sacrifice, or what you're willing to, again, going back to the vulnerability, what are you willing to really put out there? Without compromising who you are. And I think it's a lot of analysis that we don't necessarily want to go into. How much sacrifice do you want to make, whatever level that is of sacrifice?
I find the question highly intriguing, and I think it's one worth asking. I think that it does depend, as you accurately stated, whether or not you even want that. There are some comics that don't necessarily care for it. They just want to do what they do in the lane that they're in. And then there are others that do actually want to break out and make an impact on the world and get on the level of a Dave Chappelle, the level of a Kevin Hart or a Jerry Seinfeld or a Bill Burr or what have you. But doing it in a decent manner, although Jerry Seinfeld is a clean comic. I got to give him 100% props.
100%.
You think about...
He works. I've listened to a lot of his stuff on his process and things like that, and he is constantly working wording. But he just works at it constantly, and he doesn't take it. He doesn't. It's not easy for him, and he admits that. But yet, it is because he's so good at it. So did I get that question right? Did I get it right?
Yeah, I think you got that one right, Christy. But I definitely think it's because of the hard work that he puts in. But as a clean comic, I just admire the heck out of him because and if you really think about it, he's probably the most lucrative comic in the business. And I mean by far.
Yeah.
So it does speak to a lot about clean comedy. I think I think the way to define the lack of A-listers being present from the Christian community / clean comedy, because there's Brian Regan who's clean too, who's awesome. but
here's a question: is there a female secular clean comedian?
Oh my goodness, that's a really great question. And you know what?
Shonda Pierce is a Christian comedian, and would be the top A-lister. She's the best-selling DVD, of all time. Best comedian DVD sales of all time. Would you consider her an A-lister? I would. I would consider absolutely she's an A-lister. But on a secular level, I can't think of a clean comedian female that would be.
I've got one for you.
Okay.
I've got, and I don't know if I'm accurate in stating this, but she's on Shonda Pierce's level for sure. Leanne Morgan.
Yes, I would say
she's really good.
She's coming up there.
I think Lee, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Christy, she's so good that she's able to kind of cross over.
Yes, I would agree with that.
You know, Leanne could go into a church. She can go into a club. She can fill up a club and kill.
No, Angela Johnson. There you go.
And you know what? Angela Johnson might be the king. She might be the queen of the hill.
Yeah, Angela Johnson.
She's like the best.
And Sherry Shepherd.
Sherry Shepherd. I don't know that I've seen Sherry before. That name sounds familiar too.
She's primarily an actress.
Okay.
I know you've seen her.
Okay. The name sounds familiar. I just can't picture it.
She did a thing on Friends. She was Tracy Morgan's wife in 30 Rock. She was on The View. You'd recognize her when you saw her.
If I saw her, I'm sure I would. That name definitely sounds familiar. But that was a great question as far as clean female comedians. And as the more we talk about it, we'll probably come up with some more names. But because Shonda Pierce and Leanne Morgan, but and you spiked it with Angela Johnson. That's the one. Yeah, Angela Johnson is definitely the one, and she's a woman of faith.
She's in Nashville now too, so. And
she crosses over. She crosses over so easily, and she doesn't miss a beat with the clean.
Right.
Now, Michelle Van Dusen says Ellen.
I agree.
Ellen, you know what? I never thought about that.
Very good.
Because I think she's hilarious. I think Ellen is hilarious. But I never stopped and thought about Jamie Foxx. She's my best friend. How dare you? My gosh.
Yeah.
Christy, I could go on and on with you for the longest time. I think I'm actually check your list. I think I missed some of my questions, but
stay tuned for part 2 of.
But let's end on this. What advice can you leave with young comedians that are out there, particularly Christians that are thinking about making comedy a career choice?
I think one is just get better and better at the craft, and you got to get better at writing and being observational and writing down those things that you find are funny. Just keep working that muscle. If you've got to start finding your own voice. I think Bone has done such a great job teaching me how to be me on stage. Yeah. Which becomes more authentic, which makes you funnier.
Yes.
I think one of the greatest questions, I was running a bit past him one time and he said, but what's funny about it? And I thought, I've said that over and over in my head, time and time again, but what's funny about it? Like I'll find something, I think something's funny. And he said, but what's funny about it? And so breaking down what you think is funny necessarily what's going to translate even to an audience. Because I remember Rick saying, you may think a lot of things are funny, but that doesn't mean they're going to think it's funny. So just keep writing, keep observing, but then in the back of your head, go, what's funny about it? What is the funny? And that helps break it down to being truly funny and edit. That's what I've done Huckabee twice and I did the exact same set, but I edited even down from the first time I was on there just to fine tune it to the best it could be. So the editing and just keep working that process and find the funny. Just always find the funny in it.
You know what, Christy, I have to get, before the pandemic, that's all I was doing. I mean, writing, creating, writing, changing, adjusting, going out, doing an open mic, getting a vibe from the reactions and, just checking off on this. Okay, let me try more. I was working. And during the pandemic, I definitely gotten out of that. Right. I write when I can. And I'm trying to get ready for a special at my church here next month as I try to get back into it. But at the end, you've got to write and work and adjust and get on stage and be vulnerable enough to see if it works. And you've got to be working all of those things. And
I even say, because I write But then my process is I go in my closet and I just sit and I say it out loud. And so then when you say it out loud, you go, oh, I don't need 14 adjectives to describe my car. That's what the written word is different than what you're standing up there doing. And everybody's process is different. But me saying it out loud, so now I'm involving more of my senses, speaking, hearing, moving, helps me edit even more. So whatever that process is, you got to go through and find it and make it work. But yeah, you got to try it out as many places as you can, and that help you move forward.
Great advice, Christy. And as you say that, how can fans follow you on social media or contact you for booking?
My dogs are like going up the trash underneath. I'm like, stop it! So I started a little TikTok series called 60 Second Sunday School with Miss Christy.
Oh boy.
And,
okay.
That was kind of a conviction of, we've been talking a lot about, are we passionate about sharing our faith as we are of other things? And I've been in children's ministry for 20-something years. And I came to this realization that there are a lot of people out there, kids included, maybe never stepped foot in church, never don't understand anything about the Bible or God or anything. So I got a minute, right? So that's the beauty of TikTok. You got 1 minute. Now it's a little bit longer, but yeah, I just started taking 25 years of children's ministry and trying to get them into 1 minute little segments. So it's not necessarily comedy, but it is 60 Second Sunday School, So that's been a real pleasure of mine to do, is try to get something really short. So that's what I do have a website, ChristyConder.com, which you can look at. I'm on Facebook and TikTok. So yeah, that's
Christy. I'm going to have to get you on one of my comedians' Bible studies.
Oh, that'd be great. No,
I got to get you and Bone and Carrie and Leland and Thor, and we'll have a rip.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was my job for a while. That's actually still my job. We do the old-fashioned children's sermon at our church, Stonebridge Bible Church, and I bring all the kids forward, and I do a little snippet of what the pastor's going to talk about, and that's where comedy really comes out.
Okay. All right. Amen. I love it.
That's the fun. That's my fun weekly gig. So
yes. Yep. Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with the very talented and funny Christy Conder on the Maurice Brown Show. And Bone wants everybody to know ChristyConder.com is the place to be if you want to contact Christy for booking. If you've been watching this interview, this awesome conversation, and you've enjoyed it, like it and share it. And subscribe to the Maurice Brown Comedy Channel on YouTube and any social media engine that Christy Conder is a part of. If you're just coming in at the very end of the show and you're like, I missed it. Nah, it's all good. Relax. Tomorrow on the Creative Motion Network on Roku TV, you can watch the entire replay. You didn't miss anything. Just watch it tomorrow if you're coming in on the very end of this. So we've been talking with Christy Conder on the Maurice Brown Show. Christy, thank you so much.
Maurice,
it's been a great privilege having you on the show.
It was an honor.
A piece of it. Well, it was an honor for me. I appreciate, Bone reaching out to me. I think you're a fantastic comic. I've watched your material, and I'm looking forward to you appearing on the Mike Huckabee Show. We're going to be praying that up. You got to be on Mike Huckabee Show. There's no doubt about that.
Dogs are fighting.
and puppies, thank you too.
Why now are we fighting? Oh my word.
Well, Christy, God bless you. May the peace of Christ be with you and your family. God bless you.
Thank you.